All right, I have a workaround. Woo, 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 woo. Hey, hey, hey. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. So Facebook has some changes, some updates that I had no idea about. And I got on with all intention of going live at 8 o'clock or at least by 8:01 and realized that the updates would not allow me to do so. They were forcing me to go through a streaming. They're doing like a streaming. Um, I don't even know what it is. I just saw it streaming a different way API. So they want you to stream a different way rather than going in live in the group. You're like streaming through another source or something. I have no idea. And I couldn't get around it. And it allowed me to revert back the old way, but then it said it wouldn't go live. So it was crazy. So I just did a workaround. So hopefully this workaround works. So I have to learn the new way, which I don't have a problem with learning, but I just didn't have time to do that tonight. So thank you so much for joining. Let me get some folks on here. If you're on, let me know where you're chiming in from. So this is the finale of the Submission Isn't a Dirty Word series. And tonight we're going to talk about how submission can affair proof your marriage. So affair, infidelity, all the same thing. Affair could be emotionally and also can be sexually. We'll probably talk about that next month, unless you guys want to talk about something different. I was just reading up on affairs and how it can be both emotional and also sexual, and how it impacts the overall dynamics of not only just the relationship, but your life, your children, and things of that nature. So that may be a good conversation for us to have on next month, which is going to be the month of April, which is also the second quarter of the year. Whoop, whoop. So come on in, come on in, come on in. I'm just sending an email out. I meant to do this earlier, but just to be honest with you guys, I was so beat. I tried to take a nap and then my phone pinged and that just threw me off. Yeah, like my phone did I must have had like a reminder or something and it was so loud. And me, when I'm going to sleep, like I need silence or next to silence. And if it's not happening, and if I hear any little noise, it just interrupts my sleep and I can't sleep. So I think I slept for maybe 10 or 15 minutes, but it wasn't nearly enough. And I'm just like so tired. Just, I had a really busy week, working out and pushing my body to the limits. And that's it wore me out. It completely wore me out. All right, so I'm going to send this message. Hello, hello, hello. Hey, all my replay viewers. Thank you so much for chiming in. I appreciate you for being a part of the conversation on tonight. Let me know if you all can hear me as well, because that's important. That is important. Hey, hey, hey. And let me know where you are chiming in from. I'm going to check up on you guys. I want to pray and do all of that stuff. I know we're in the midst, literally, of a world crisis right now. A lot of things are happening. A lot of people are getting nervous and anxious and worried and scared and fearful. And, it's affecting everyone in a different way. Some people are being laid off. Some people, businesses are being impacted significantly. Um, and just, it's a lot of things happening right now. So this is testing time. This is a very challenging time for a lot of people, and everybody is not as strong as others. Everybody don't have the same conditions or situations as other people do. Some people, you know, may not have saved and did other things that they needed to do in order to prepare for something like this. Some people are just not prepared. So how do we get prepared? How do we prevent you know how do we prevent our life coming down in shambles when we go through adverse moments? We'll be having those conversations in the Girl Catch Your Life group. Not here so much, not today anyway. But those are the type of conversations we have in Girl Catch Your Life. So if you're not a part of that movement, then definitely head on over to Girl Catch Your Life and become a part of it. Hey Dee from Dallas. Hey girl. Hey, thank you so much for letting me know that. So I'm going to pray and then I'm going to go ahead and get into the lesson. This is the finale lesson. I can't say it. Finale. I'm looking for that tonight. Okay. So Father in heaven, excuse me. Father in heaven, Lord, we just thank you for this day. We thank you for this opportunity just to come before you. Lord, we thank you for an opportunity as we go into your word tonight. God, we call on you for our helper, to be our strength in this time of need. God, the world is in a crisis right now, and we're calling on you because there is no other help that we know. God, we need you like never before. And God, as we congregate tonight on this Facebook Live and talk about submission, one of the things that's clear in your word as to what should be showing up in our marriages, oh God, I pray that you decrease me and that you increase. I pray that everybody that comes on the live on tonight, that they have open ears and an open heart, God, that they're willing and ready to receive what your word says. And I pray that after this conversation, that their marriages, their lives will never ever be the same. For in your son Jesus' name. Thank you, Lord God. Amen. All right. So I don't know, something went down the wrong hole or something. So the last few weeks, can I find out my water? The last few weeks we've been talking about submission. And we talked about how submission isn't a dirty word. We talked about how submission is something that God has outlined in his scriptures, in the word of God, in the Bible, in the scriptures. We talked about how most couples struggle with submission. We debunked some lies as it relates to submission, what it is and what it isn't. So how many of you have been on the conversation every Friday? I need to do something because this thing is annoying my view here. All right. How many of you have been on the conversation every Friday for the last few Fridays? If that's been you, let me know. Let me know if you've been on the last few Fridays and you've been a part of this conversation. The reason why we're having this conversation tonight, and the reason why we've had this conversation every Friday night for the month of March, is because submission has been overlooked. Submission has been undervalued. Submission has been abused. Submission has been misunderstood. And a lot of people don't realize how submission is directly tied to success, is directly tied to longevity in your marriage, is directly tied to the wealth and health of your marriage, is directly tied to the strength of your marriage, the overall happiness of your marriage, because we were taught or we caught or learned some way, somehow, that submission was this horrible thing, and that it shouldn't show up. It shouldn't be something that you gravitate toward or something that you practice or implement. And I wanted to just denounce those lies. I wanted to debunk those lies. And I really wanted to show you the beauty of submission and show you how, if you implement submission in your marriage, how you can make it work and how you and your spouse can truly have the marriage of your dreams when you're operating in this place. So tonight we're going to talk about the goal of submission. Two things we're going to talk about. Then I have some subtopics and sub conversations, I guess, underneath that. And these are some things I wrote down. So if you see me looking down, I am looking at my notes because I'm not going to remember all of this. So the goal of submission is always unity. So if you're here on tonight, I want you to write that down for me. And if you don't have a piece of paper and a pen, please go ahead and get that so you can go back and refer to this, or you can go back and look at the video, whichever one works for you. But the goal of submission is always unity. And what I did, I created a mnemonic for unity, because as I started thinking about submission and I started thinking about unity, I wanted to see, okay, how does that play into all of this? How does the unity play out? What does that mean exactly? So when I talk about unity, the U is for understood or understand, being able to understand one another or having understood one another. So if you're in a place of unity with your spouse, that means that you understand them, right? You understand their concerns, you understand their worries, you care about their concerns, you care about their worries, and you're intentional about understanding. You're making a choice every single day to understand them, not to dismiss them as if they don't matter, as if they're not important, as if their cares or concerns are not important, as if their worries are not important. And get this, even if their negativity is not important. Because if your spouse is showing up negative, or if you are showing up negative, then that means that something is wrong. And you have to give the space and the opportunity for your spouse to be able to express their negativity, their negative emotions. I mean, not to the place, of course, of it being toxic and, the environment just becomes this a toxic environment, but there may have been something that happened. There may have been a regrettable incident or occurrence that has happened, and you have to allow your spouse room to be able to share that. And that's where that understanding comes in at. And with understanding, there comes compassion. With understanding, there comes kindness. With understanding, there comes just a level of truth and transparency one from another. Okay. The goal of submission is always unity. The U is for understanding or having understood. The N is for need. And when we talk about submission, is being able to meet each other needs. And I want this to be a conversation where you're talking back to me on tonight. So when I talk about meeting each other needs, can you all just write down some of the needs that need to be met in marriage, if you don't mind? Let's talk about that for a little bit. What needs need to be met in marriage? As the wife, what type of needs do you have? As a husband, what type of needs does your husband have? And what is our responsibility and our role in meeting those needs? Let's talk about that for a little bit. Let's talk about that for a minute. The needs in the marriage. The needs in the marriage. Okay. What are some of the physical needs, D? That's true. Yes, trust is a need. But what are some of the tangible, some of the physical needs? When we think about the marriage covenant and we're talking about meeting each other needs, what are some of the physical needs that a wife has? What are some of the physical needs that a husband has? I would even argue that one of the needs in marriage is sex. Some argumentatively can say that's a want, but sex was designed for the marriage covenant. Absolutely. You need attention, right? You need to feel love. You need to feel wanted. And this may be more so on the wife end. Need to feel wanted. You need to feel love, right? You need to feel desired. Yeah. So those are the needs, some of the needs, just some of the needs. And you ask a guy, he may say, I need to be encouraged. I need to feel uplifted. I need to feel wanted, because it's for some reason, we think that men don't have those needs, and they do. They may express it differently. They may ask for it differently. They may share with you differently in how they need it, need needs, but they need needs as well. Even men, they may, when they are in need of something, they may catch an attitude, or they may become defensive or offensive. There are different things that happens in the marriage that in which they're trying to express to you, I am in need of something and I need you to fulfill it. Because all the time we're not great communicators all the time. So instead of outright saying I need, sometimes we verbally or non-verbally express what we need. Motivation, absolutely. And you know what, D? And if sometimes you're not getting these things, if you're not getting these things in your marriage, then we have to seek other external relationships that are healthy. I'm not talking about relationships of the opposite sex, but what I'm talking about is as far as motivation is concerned, although you may have a need or desire for your spouse to motivate you, they may not have that capacity to do that. And that's why our other external relationships are so important. Okay. The I is for inspire. Inspire. So when we talk about unity, the goal of submission is always unity. We have to be able to inspire one another. Let's ask the question, does your spouse make you better? And do you make your spouse better? Are you the person you want your spouse to be? Is your spouse the person they want you to be? How are you inspiring one another? How are you inspiring each other's creativity? How are you influencing one another? Right? Good or bad? Are you a positive influence in your marriage, or are you a negative influence in your marriage? Right? You should always encourage and influence that this is what I wrote here. You should always encourage and influence one another to do better and to be better. So let's just self-reflect for a moment. Is that your truth in your marriage? And I get it. You have your days where you're not on, you are able to give 100% or do 100%. But on those days that you are you influencing and inspiring one another to be better and to do better? That's the question. Because if you're not able to get that in your marriage, that's the closest relationship that you have. A marriage is the closest human relationship. So if you're not able to be inspired by the closest human relationship that you have here on earth, then where are you going to be able to get that inspiration? Are you guys? It's a little too dim for me. Where are you going to get that inspiration? And that's the question that we have to ask, right? So if my husband is supposed to be my influencer and my inspiration for being better, for doing better, for being more creative, for walking in my purpose, for fulfilling that purpose, for being greater in that purpose, and he's not able to do that, where will I find that, per se? What other relationships will be able to give me what my spouse should be giving me? Okay. Time. T is for time. Taking the time out to learn, to love, and to lead each other. That's important. This is a prime time right now as we're in this world crisis and so much is going on and so many people are nervous and so many people are in fear. We as wives and wives who win can take this opportunity and take this time to lead, to love, and to learn, or to learn, to love, and to lead one another, to learn more about one another, to love one another with that agape love, expressing that love that we should be expressing anyway. And now, because we're in so close counter and so close proximity with one another, no time like the present, this is a great time to be able to experience and express that type of love that we have for one another. I've been sharing with you all, things that my husband has been doing. This time we've been quarantined, and his increase in expression of love. I know that he loves me. I've never doubted that, but I'm just so grateful that it has increased even the more. And he's been very intentional about his expression of love toward me. So that's what we should be doing during this time, and learning from one another. What can you learn from your spouse? This is all about unity. This is all about submission, because this is the thing. When you know someone, and when you learn to trust someone, then it's easy to follow someone. When you know someone and you're able to trust that person, it's easy to follow them. It's easy for them to take charge and have headship, per se, over you, because you trust them, just like God, right? We trust him, so we surrender to him. We surrender to his lordship. the same as we do to him, the same as we do to our husbands. But the only way you can do that is if you get to know him and if he gets to know you. You cannot have trust without love, and you cannot have love without trust. And catch this, you can't have either one without vulnerability. I saw you put that earlier, D. You can't have either without vulnerability. And then the Y is yield, yielding to the interests of one another, yielding to the desire of one another, yielding to the will of the other person. So unity means to understand or to be understood, need, inspire, time, and yield. Those are the things that comprise of unity. So 3 requirements. I've talked about this so many times about the 3 requirements that are required, that are necessary in order for your marriage to thrive, in order for your marriage to be healthy. And I'm going to talk about these again, and I'm going to give you some more content and context of what this means exactly. So I talked about mutuality. When we talk about mutuality, and this is all in the conversation of being able to submit to one another, because you cannot submit in a marriage if mutuality is missing. Mutuality means same or both. We're on the same page. We're both doing the same thing. We're like-minded, and we're in likeness with one another, and we are coming into agreement. Submission forces you to come into agreement with one another. And if you are not willing to come into agreement with your spouse, then you're going to have a hard time with submission. So that's mutuality. Reciprocity. Reciprocity is an exchange, exchanging something for mutual benefit, right? So if I am giving love, if I'm giving kindness, if I'm giving my time, if I'm giving my finances, my resources, then my spouse should be willing to give that in return. We are exchanging. We are giving one. I'm giving, he's giving, I'm getting. It should be like a fine-tuned chain, if you would. We should both be giving and getting, and it should be like a cycle, like we're recycling. As he gives, I get. As he get, I give, and vice versa. And that has to happen in the marriage. And that's what reciprocity is all about. It's an exchange. So it's not just one person doing all the work. It's not one person working on the marriage. It's not one person giving all of themselves. It's not one person paying the bills. It's not one person taking care of the children. It's not one person doing all the cooking. It's not one person doing all of the cleaning. It's not one person doing all of the chores, household chores, yard work, or whatever is a part of your dynamics in your marriage. It's not one person doing one thing. It's not the one person showing and expressing love. That has to be reciprocity. And then number 3 is freedom. Freedom to be who you are. And I see this happens in marriage a lot. Individuals want people to be like them. And if the person does not show up like them or do life the way that they do life, somehow they think it's wrong. And we have to learn how to allow others to be free, and we have to learn how to be free as well. I wrote here, unity says that there are no winners and no losers. Either we both win or we both lose, period. So we have to come to a place where how can we always be in favor of winning? And what can we do together to make sure that we both are winning every single time? How do we do that? How do we do that? That's the question that we need to ask ourselves. How do we make sure that we're winning every single time? That's the question. Okay. Working together toward a solution. How do we work together toward a solution instead of constantly bickering, constantly having unresolved conflict, unnecessary tension, unnecessary avoidance? and division in the home? How do we work together to find a solution? If we can't come to an agreement, is it okay that your husband, being head, being the leader of the home, makes that final decision? Are you okay with that? Are you able to trust him in that place? Now, granted, this is a man that understands submission. This is a man that does not abuse submission. This is a man that, treats his family well. He has his family best interests at heart, and he's leading in that way. He's a great leader. Can you trust him to make that final decision? And if you're on here on tonight and you say you can't trust him to make that final decision, so then how can you all change the dynamics of how those decisions are made? Or how can you support and encourage him to be better at making that final decision? Okay. So the goal of submission is always unity. Number 2, if you didn't know, men have a higher accountability to submission than women do. And the reason why I say that, and I agree with that, is because men submit out of preference, whereas women submit out of principle. We submit based on truth, based on principle. This is what we should do. Men submit based on preference. Okay? 90% of life decisions are a matter of preference and not principle. So our men, our husbands, they have a heavier burden when it comes to submission. You know why? Because they have to submit to God's authority first. And because they have to submit to God's authority, that causes them to be selfless, and that causes them to have a willingness to submit to his authority. And catch this, they also have to love their wives as Christ loved the church, and treat their wives as Christ treat the church. That's a heavy responsibility. And if they're not meeting that responsibility, if they're not doing what God has called them to do as it relates to their submission to him, guess what? Then he'll deal with them accordingly. And we see that all throughout scripture, starting with Adam, when he listened to his wife and ate that fruit. So men have a higher responsibility of submission, whether they know it or not, whether they live like it or not. Their submission authority is to Christ, whereas our submission authority is to our husband. Yes, we have a level of submission to God as well as a child of God, right? As a daughter of God. But our submission in the home front is to our husband, whereas our husbands must submit to Christ. So I said here, don't worry, because if he does not lead the way that he should, God will take care of it. If he neglects his role and responsibilities, God will take care of it. If he abuses the gift of submission, God will take care of it. If he fails to love and to lead you like Christ, God will take care of it. And what is our responsibility, you may be asking? Well, our responsibilities, wives, we have to give an account for how we allow our husbands to lead. Are we allowing him to lead? Are we giving him space to lead? Are we trusting him to lead? Are we encouraging him to lead? Are we lifting him up and telling him that he can lead? Are we making it easy for him? Or are we making it harder for him to lead? But we have our attitude, our mindset, our emotions, our lack of support, our lack of encouragement. So these are the just things that we have to ask ourselves. How is he able? Is he able and capable of making the final decision when one can't be made? And are we showing him that he has that ability and providing that motivation and support when he needs it? And sometimes even lessons, because you may be versed in something that he isn't. You may know how to do something better or well than he isn't. So can we come to an agreement that with your support, assistance, or interjection, he can still make that final decision? Husbands, support and serve your wives, and your willingness to submit to your wife in the area of preference makes it easier for her to submit in the area of principle. So when husbands love and support us, it makes it easier for him to submit by way of preference, in us by way of principle. So when we do all of these things, and thank you all for just now joining the conversation. My replay viewers, thank you again for coming on and checking out the video. Make sure you let me know how you enjoyed it. When we do these things, we can affair-proof our marriage. Because when we're in a place of unity, when we're understanding one another, when we're meeting with each other's needs, when we're inspiring and influencing one another, when we're taking that time out to learn, to love, and to lead, and when we're yielding one to another, then there's no room for anything else to come in between that covenant relationship. Because we are giving our marriage what it needs and what it desires. We are giving our partners what he or she needs, if a man just so happens to watch this, and what he or she desires. We're meeting those things. And we're doing that by way of submission, choosing to come under the authority, choosing to come under the will of someone else. So that's what we have for tonight, you all. That is our conversation on submission. If you have any questions, I'll take a few seconds and go ahead and answer those questions for you. We are here every Friday night at 8 p.m. This is our Friday Night Live talk show, our Friday Night Live conversations, every Friday night at 8 p.m. Next month, I'm really thinking about talking about emotional and sexual affairs and how we can prevent those. I've been talking about affair proofing and divorce proofing. I've been talking about submission. So this conversation is going to continue, and we're just going to roll it into next month in talking about emotional and sexual affairs. Also, the second week in April, I'll be hosting a masterclass. So I'll share that information with you. It's a free class. It's going to be the second week in April. So I'll make sure you all have that so you can sign up for that free class and be a part of that conversation as well. And every Monday at 5:30 a.m., we are praying. We are wives who pray every Monday at 5:30 a.m. So listen, if you all have been blessed by this community, if you all have been blessed by these conversations, by these teachings, and all these things that you've been receiving out of this community, I am asking that you invite people to come on in to the community, to be a part of these conversations so they can get tools and resources so that they too can win in their marriage. So there are no questions. Thank you all for your time tonight. Please be safe out there. Please make sure that you are staying healthy. Wear your mask if you're going out, your gloves, and what other protective gear that you may need. Make sure you're sanitizing and all that good stuff. We are in a trying time as a community, as a nation right now. So praying is definitely needed, and also making sure that you are staying safe. Stay safe. Stay home if you can. If it's not essential, try not to do it. My nails need done right now if it is not essential. So I'm not going out there until I am clear to go. So you all have a beautiful and blessed evening. And I will see you all on Monday for Wives Who Pray. Good night.